A slave among Lords Illyra stood on the cold floor of the great hall, her bare feet shaking from pain and fear. The marble beneath her was smooth but stained with drops of blood, hers and others. Her dress was torn, dirty, and barely covered the scars across her back. She was once a proud daughter of the Ryan people, but now she was nothing more than a slave, a toy for alien nobles. The alien lords of Valthur Prime sat above her on their high thrones. Their skin was silver blue, and their glowing eyes held no mercy. They laughed at her, long, sharp laughs that echoed through the hall like knives. "Look how low she has fallen," said one. "A Ryan girl with no pride left," said another. Illyra didn't cry. Not anymore. Tears had stopped coming weeks ago. She just stood there, silent, her eyes fixed on the floor, waiting for the next order, the next blow. Then, someone new entered the hall. A tall man in black armor walked in, his boots making soft sounds on the stone. His skin was not silver or blue, it was human. His name was Commander Jace Riker. He was from Earth, brought in as a military advisor for the Lords. Humans were rare here, and most served the Empire for safety and profit. Looked different from the others. His face was calm, but his eyes moved carefully, taking in every detail. And when he saw Illyra, his gaze stayed on her for a moment longer than it should have. "Commander Riker," said Lord Carvin, the leader of the council, "you arrived just in time. We were about to discipline our little pet." "Discipline?" Jace asked. She refused to bow fast enough. A slave must know her place. Jace said nothing. He watched as two guards grabbed Illyra by the arms and forced her to her knees. One raised a metal rod. Illyra didn't scream as the first hit came. Her body jolted, but she made no sound. Jace clenched his fist. "That's enough," he said suddenly. The room fell silent. Lord Carvin narrowed his eyes. "Did you say something? Human?" Jace walked forward slowly. "I said that's enough. She's already injured. What good is a slave who can't stand?" The guards looked at each other, unsure what to do. "You dare speak against our punishment?" Carvin hissed. Jace bent down, beside Illyra. She looked up at him, confused. No one had ever knelt near her before. No one had looked her in the eyes with softness. "You're bleeding," Jace said quietly. "I don't care," Illyra whispered back. He gently lifted her up. She was light. Too light, barely holding herself together. The Lord shouted, but Jace ignored them. He carried her out of the hall without asking for permission. The guards didn't stop him. They didn't dare. Inside his quarters, Jace placed her on a soft bench and gave her water. She took it, still silent, still watching him like he might strike her. "Why did you help me?" she asked after a long pause. "Because no one else would," Jace said. "You're one of them." "No, I'm human, and we don't treat people like animals." Illyra looked away. "I'm not people, not to them. I'm just dirt." "Not to me," he said. She didn't believe him. Not yet. But something inside her, a tiny spark, flickered to life again. He stood and turned to leave. "You can rest here for a while," he said. "No one will bother you." "Why?" she asked again. "Because I remember what it feels like," he said softly. "To have no one." The door closed behind him. Illyra looked around the room. It was warm, quiet. There were no chains, no whips, no shouting. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel afraid, but she didn't trust it. Not yet. And outside, in the halls of power, the lords whispered angrily, "A human sides with a slave? He's dangerous. We must watch him closely." But none of them saw what was truly beginning. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness is the first spark of a rebellion. The human's first step. Illyra woke up to silence. Real silence. Not the crack of whips, not the screams of other slaves, not the cold voice of a lord demanding something. For a moment she thought she was dead, but then the pain in her back reminded her she was still alive. She slowly sat up. The room was warm and quiet. A soft light glowed from the wall. The bench she lay on was covered in clean cloth. A small table beside her held a glass of water and some food. Real food, not the dry paste thrown at her in the slave pits. It felt like a dream. But then she remembered him, the human, Commander Jace Riker. He had stopped the beating, picked her up like she mattered, spoken to her like she was still a person. Why? Why would a human risk everything for her? Outside the door, Jace sat alone, his eyes scanning a glowing tablet. But his mind was far from the screen. He kept seeing her face. Not just broken, but tired. Empty. Like someone who had forgotten what hope even felt like, and that bothered him more than he wanted to admit. He had seen pain before. War had shown him enough. But this was different. This was cruelty in the name of power. And he hated it. A soft knock came from the door. He turned. The door slid open and there she stood, Alira. Still weak, still shaking, but standing. You should be resting, Jace said. You should have let them kill me, she replied, her voice flat. Not really my style, he said. You'll get punished for this, probably. She looked at him for a long moment. Why did you help me? I told you. No one else would. That's not a reason. Not in this place. Everyone here follows the Lords. They hate weakness, they kill for sport, and you... She paused, narrowing her eyes. You had nothing to gain. Jace sighed and leaned back. I've seen too many people destroyed for nothing. Sometimes one step in the right direction is enough to start something bigger. You're strange for a human, she said. I hear that a lot. She almost smiled. Almost. Just then, a loud knock pounded on the door. Jace stood fast, hand reaching for his blaster. The door slid open and 2 armored guards stepped in. Commander Riker, one of them growled. Lord Carvin summons you immediately. What for? To explain your behavior. Jace nodded. Calm on, the outside. But his jaw was tight. I'll come. She stays here. She's a slave. She goes back to the pits. Not today. The guards hesitated. No one defied Lord Carvin. But Jace was human, and humans had power the Lords didn't always understand. Fine, the guard said. But you'll pay for this. After they left, Alira looked at him, confused. Why are you really doing this? She asked again. Maybe I'm tired of watching people suffer while I pretend not to care, he said. Maybe. I've been a coward long enough. The throne room was colder than before. Jace stood before the alien lords, their glowing eyes fixed on him like knives. You broke order, Carvin hissed. You stopped a punishment. You took a slave without permission. I treated a living being like a living being, Jace said. She's property. Then maybe your laws are broken. A heavy silence fell. We trusted humans to follow our rules, another lord said. You were brought here to help us, not question us. Maybe you chose the wrong human, Jace replied. The lords were furious, but Jace didn't back down. They could punish him, exile him, even try to kill him. But he had made his choice, and back in his quarters, Alira listened to every word through a small device Jace had left on the table. He wanted her to hear. He wanted her to know he meant every word. For the first time in her life, someone was willing to stand up for her without asking for anything in return. And something deep inside her, something she thought was long dead, began to stir. That night, Jace returned to find her sitting by the door. They'll come for you, she said. Let them. You'll be thrown out, maybe worse, maybe. But at least I'll know I did something right. You're risking your life for a slave. No, he said. For a person. She looked away, hiding the tears building in her eyes. She hadn't cried in so long she had forgotten how. But this time she didn't stop them. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. Then don't, Jace replied. Just don't give up on yourself. She nodded slowly. I won't, she said. Not anymore. But outside, Deep in the shadows of the palace, a different kind of storm was growing. The lords were planning something, and the human who dared to defy them was now marked. But what they didn't know was this: he wasn't alone anymore. Her chains, his war. The sky over Valthor Prime was always gray. The tall towers of the noble district rose into the clouds like blades, cold and sharp. Under those towers, in hidden corners and forgotten tunnels, something dangerous was starting to grow. But it didn't begin with fire. It began with a girl who had once given up, and a human who refused to look away. Elira stood in front of the mirror inside Jace's quarters. Her face was cleaner now. Her arms still showed bruises, but the swelling had started to fade. Her hair was combed for the first time in weeks, but she didn't recognize the girl in the reflection. "You still look like someone who doesn't believe in herself," Jace said from behind her. She turned sharply, surprised he was watching. "Maybe that's because I don't," she replied quietly. "You will," Jace said, tossing her a small object. She caught it, barely. It was a sleek training weapon. Blunt, but heavy. Not for killing, for learning. "What is this?" she asked. "A start," Jace said. "I'm going to teach you how to fight. I'm not a soldier. You don't need to be. But if you ever want to stop running, you have to learn how to stand." The next days were not quiet. In the deep corners of the palace, Jace and Elira trained. He showed her how to strike, how to block, how to move without making sound. At first she struggled. She fell. She cried when her body failed. But Jace never shouted. He only waited, helped her back up, and made her try again. "This isn't just about fighting," he told her once. "This is about control. If they break your body, they win. If they break your mind, you never get back up." One night, during a break, Elira sat beside him on the floor. "You said you knew what it felt like," she said. Jace didn't answer at first. He stared ahead at the blank wall. "My sister," he finally said. "She was taken when I was just a boy, by people who thought they had the right to control others. I couldn't stop them. I was too weak, too afraid. Did you ever find her?" "No," he said, his voice low, "but I promised myself I'd never watch something like that happen again." They sat in silence after that, but something unspoken passed between them, something stronger than words. Outside the palace, the city grew restless. More slaves whispered of a human who defied the lords. Some even claimed to have seen Elira walking freely with him, unmarked, unchained. Rumors spread like fire, and far away, in the shadowed districts of the lower rings, the old resistance listened. The rebellion had once been strong, until the lords crushed it with steel and blood. But now a new voice spoke through hidden channels, encrypted messages, strange codes. A voice that said, "I am still here, and I am not alone." In the throne chamber, Lord Carven hissed as he slammed his fist against the arm of his throne. "He grows too bold," Carven snarled. "That human dares to teach our slaves to walk our halls with pride?" "He inspires weakness," another lord said. "He must be removed." Quietly, but Carven shook his head. "No, not yet. If we strike too early, the people will notice. The rebellion will rise again. We must crush him from within." A plan was forming. They would offer Jace a test, one that would force him to choose, serve them fully, or betray the very girl he was trying to protect. The next morning, Jace received a message. A small device lit up with a symbol he hadn't seen in years. Earth Command. His eyes narrowed as he tapped it open. "Commander Riker," the voice said, "you are ordered to report on the political state of Valthor Prime. Confirm if rebellion activity still exists. If not, ensure the Empire's interests are protected. You are not to interfere with internal discipline." He stared at the message for a long time. Then he crushed the device in his hand. Elira watched him from across the room. "Bad news?" she asked. "No," Jace replied. "Just old ghosts." But he knew what it meant. Earth didn't care about justice. They cared about trade, order, power. They wanted him to keep quiet, to play the game. He wasn't going to play. That night, Elira led Jace through the old service tunnels under the palace. "I want to show you something," she said. They passed broken doors, rusted pipes, and old bloodstains. Finally, they reached a hidden room lit by a single flickering light. Inside were 4 others, alien slaves, old and young, who looked up in shock when they saw Jace. "You brought him?" one asked. "He's not like them," Elira said. "He saved me, trained me, and he wants to fight." The room went still. Then the oldest one stepped forward. His name was Varen. His body was thin, but his eyes were sharp. "Then he needs to see this," Varen said. He opened a panel in the wall, revealing a hidden transmitter, one that connected to rebel cells across the planet. "We've been waiting," Varen said, "for someone who could do what we couldn't." "We're not ready," Jace said. "Not yet. But we will be," Elira added. "You gave me hope. Now I'm giving it back." Jace nodded slowly. Her chains were gone. His war was just beginning. Sparks behind enemy walls. The nights on Valthor Prime felt longer now. Deep under the palace, past the golden halls and cruel laughter of the alien lords, sparks were lighting behind the walls. Silent, careful, dangerous sparks. Not fire. Not yet. But something close. A rebellion was breathing again. In the hidden chamber beneath the throne room, Elira stood facing Varen and 3 other rebels. Her hands were steady now, her eyes sharper. She was no longer just the broken girl in chains. She had become something more. "We have to move soon," Varen said. "The lords are growing suspicious. They've tightened patrols in the lower sectors." Elira nodded. "We're not ready for open war, but we can make them bleed, little by little." In the corner, Jace checked the wiring on a small pulse jammer. It was old tech, but it could knock out palace communications for 6 minutes, long enough to strike, then vanish. "We don't need a war yet," Jace said. "We need proof. Show the galaxy what's happening behind these walls, expose their crimes." "And what then?" one of the rebels asked. "You think the Empire will come running to save us?" Jace looked up. "No, but if we make this big enough, loud enough, others will." Elira stepped forward. "Then we hit the food vault tonight." Everyone went quiet. "You're serious?" Varen asked. "It's heavily guarded," said another rebel. "Exactly," she said. "Which is why they'll never expect us to attack it. If we destroy the food vault, we break their control over the slave pits. No more reward rations. No more silent obedience. It's time we make some noise." Jace smiled faintly. "You're starting to sound like me," he said. "No," Elira replied. "I'm starting to sound like us." That night, shadows moved through the palace service halls. Jace and Elira led a small strike team, just 5 rebels. Small, fast, quiet. They moved through air vents and blind corridors, each step planned, each breath held. As they neared the food vault, Jace's comm clicked softly. 3 guards outside, he whispered. Standard formation, heavy rifles. "Distraction?" Elira asked. Jace nodded and tapped the control on his jammer. The hallway lights flickered. Sparks flew. Alarms blinked. The guards turned just for a moment. Crack! Elira moved like a whisper in the dark, her training clear now. She slammed her stun rod into the first guard's neck. Jace fired once, twice, non-lethal rounds. The guards dropped fast. The rebels rushed forward, disabling the vault's doors. Inside were rows of glowing crates filled with processed ration bars, the very chains that kept the slave pits obedient. "Set charges," Jace said. Within minutes, explosives were placed, timers ticking. They slipped back into the shadows. 3 minutes later, a thunderous boom shook the palace floor. Fire swallowed the vault. The alarm howled. And across the slave districts, workers looked up, eyes wide. "They struck back," one whispered. "Someone hit them," another said. Hope flickered like embers in a dry forest. In the command tower, Lord Carvin's face twisted with fury. "Find them," he screamed. "Tear this place apart. Someone help them, someone with training, behind." Him, a silent figure, stepped forward. Lord Draxon, the coldest among them. "We do not need to find them," Draxon said. We need to trap them. How? We give them what they want. We create a fake rebel hideout, leak the location, and when they come running, we crush them, Carvin finished, eyes narrowing. A cruel plan was born, and somewhere in the system a message was being prepared. To the rebels hiding in the dark, we have heard your cry. Come to Sector 11. Weapons await, freedom awaits. But it was a lie. A beautiful, deadly lie. Meanwhile, back in the tunnels, Alira and Jace sat beside a low fire. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Jace broke the silence. You moved like a soldier tonight. Alira didn't smile, but there was pride in her eyes. You taught me to stand, she said. Now I'm ready to run. He studied her for a moment. You ever think we're just pushing a rock up a hill that never ends? He asked. Yes, she answered. But it's better than dying on our knees. He nodded. They both knew what was coming. The Lords would strike back, hard. They always did. But Jace had been a soldier long enough to know, when the enemy starts setting traps, it means they're afraid. And fear for the Lords of Valthor Prime was new. The next day, one of the rebels brought news. A contact sent a message, she whispered. They say weapons are waiting, real ones. Sector 11 off-grid warehouse. Alira frowned. Too easy, Jace said. That's bait. But what if it's real? Varen asked. We're desperate. We need supplies. Jace looked at Alira. Your call, he said. She paused, and then, we go, but we set the trap this time. Deep in the tunnels, maps were drawn, decoys created, fake comm signals tested. The rebels were no longer just surviving, they were planning. And above them, behind golden walls, the Lords sharpened their knives. The war hadn't started yet, but the first spark had already set the fuse. The fire rises. The warehouse in Sector 11 was too quiet, too clean, too perfect. Alira crouched behind, a rusted pipe, watching the building through the scope Jace had given her. From this distance, she could see the blinking lights near the main door, motion sensors, disguised as debris, security drones hidden in shadow. And worst of all, no guards visible. It's a trap, she whispered into her comm. Agreed, Jace replied from his position above the warehouse. They want us to come inside, then close the walls. So we don't go in, Varen said from the back line. We do go in, Alira said, but we don't go in blind. Inside her sleeve was a thin strip of explosive thread, woven from stolen wire and old mining fuses. Alira had learned to make them last week. Now she would use them for the first time. She slid into the shadows and began wrapping the thread around a side support beam of the warehouse. Not enough to destroy it, just enough to bring the roof down if they had to run. Meanwhile, Jace was already inside. He'd used the service hatch near the roof, bypassing the main entry sensors. The inside of the warehouse was filled with crates, marked with false rebel symbols. Stage props, nothing more. But what caught his eye was the thin trail of heat coming from the floor. A second level, a hidden chamber below. He tapped the side of his helmet and activated the scanner. Dozens of heat signatures, guards, weapons, an ambush. He turned to leave, but the hatch slammed shut above him. Damn it, Jace muttered. Then a voice filled the warehouse. Speakers. Commander Riker, the traitor of two empires. Lord Draxon. You chose a slave over your people. You chose weakness over power. Now, you'll die with her. Jace's eyes narrowed. He tapped his wrist. Alira, now. Outside, Alira's comm clicked. Then she saw it. Dozens of Lord's soldiers pouring from underground doors. Armored, armed, and ready. But she wasn't afraid. She smiled. Finally, she pressed the trigger. The support beam detonated. A roar of fire and stone slammed into the side of the warehouse, collapsing part of the roof. Inside, chaos erupted. Jace used the blast to his advantage, dropping down into the hidden level before the guards could react. With quick, precise shots, he took out 3 before the rest even understood what was happening. He moved like a ghost, fast and brutal. Every bullet was placed, Every hit counted. Outside, the rebels moved in. Elira led the charge, no longer just a survivor but a symbol. She wore no armor, only a dark cloak and the fire in her eyes. They struck hard, fast. Guards fell, drones exploded, and, in the middle of it all, Elira saw the symbol of the Empire burning on the wall, and she laughed. This wasn't fear. This was power. Meanwhile, in the throne room, Lord Carvin watched the battle unfold on his screen. His face twisted in confusion, then anger. How did they know? Lord Draxon stepped forward, his expression unreadable. They knew because they're no longer alone, he said. The humans have picked a side. Carvin's hand clenched into a fist. Then let's show them what it costs to defy us. He pressed a button. Deep within the palace, a hidden protocol was activated. Project Black Storm. Back in the warehouse, Jace and Elira met at the center. He was bruised, blood on his arm. She had a burn across her shoulder, but both were still standing. How many did we lose? He asked. 2 injured. None dead, she said. We won. Jace looked at her, really looked. You're more than ready, he said. They're going to fear you now. Good, she said. Let them. But then, the sky above them shifted. Deep hum filled the air, and from the far horizon a massive black ship descended, not the Lord's usual patrol vessels. Something older, darker. What the hell is that? One rebel whispered. Jace's face paled. Black Storm, he said. An old human weapon, given to the Lords years ago, built for wiping out rebel cities in a single strike. Elira stared at the ship. They're going to erase us. Unless we take that ship first, Jace said. She looked at him. You're serious? Always. A long pause passed. Then she nodded. Then we take the fire we started and burn their sky. That night, every rebel, every freed slave, every survivor who still had breath, gathered under one banner, Elira's banner. And the fire they lit could be seen from every tower of Valthor Prime. The fire had risen, and now there would be no going back. The Lord who betrayed his kind. The fire from the destroyed warehouse still smoldered in the distance. The sky above Valthor Prime had changed. It was no longer just gray. Now it was angry, lit with flame, smoke, and the growing shadows of war, and in the heart of that storm stood a traitor, but not the one they expected. Lord Valen stood in his private chamber staring at the broken symbols of the noble code hanging on his wall. He had once believed in order, in the old ways, in control, through fear. But lately, the faces of the broken had haunted him, the screams, the silence that came after, and worst of all, the defiance of a single human who reminded everyone what honor really looked like. And that girl, the Ryan slave with fire in her eyes, she should have been erased. Instead, she had become the spark. My lord, a servant whispered. Behind him. They are preparing the Black Storm ship. The command has come from Carvin himself. Valen turned slowly. And what is their target? Sector 7. The lower rings. Over 12,000 civilians. The word struck deep. He knew that area. Families, children, not just rebels, innocents. It would be a slaughter. He nodded slowly. Tell no one you came here. When the servant left, Valen walked to a hidden panel in his floor. From it, he pulled a small device, a transmitter he had stolen years ago from a dying human soldier. He turned it on. A voice answered. This is Riker, came Jace's voice. Go ahead. Valen hesitated. Then, I am not your ally, but I'm no longer theirs. Jace's voice didn't change. Talk. They're going to fire the Black Storm. 1 hour. Target. Civilians. You don't have time to fight it from the ground. You have to board it. We were planning to. Then you'll need something more. Valen uploaded access codes, his own, ones only a High Lord could possess. Why help us? Jace asked. Valen looked out over the burning skyline. Because I no longer know what side I'm on, but I know who shouldn't win." He ended the call, and for the first time in his life, Lord Valen prepared to betray his own kind. On the ground, in the rebel camp, Jace and Elira studied the plans. "We've got 42 fighters ready," Farron said, "but half don't have proper gear." "We won't win with force," Jace said. "We win with precision. Small team. Break inside. Disable weapons. Shut the ship down from the bridge." "Then we go with 6, Elira said. "Me, Jace, Farron, and 3 others." "Are you sure?" Jace asked. Elira looked him in the eyes. "This is the moment," she said. "Everything we've built. Everything we've lost. This is where we take the sky back." They launched, under cover of smoke, an old transport shuttle cloaked by broken code and hacked signals. Thanks to Valen's betrayal, they landed at the base of the Black Storm silently. Guards moved unaware like sleepwalkers in steel. The team slipped inside, each member knowing the cost of failure was not just death, it was extinction. Inside, the ship was worse than they imagined. Walls of black alloy, no windows, no warmth. It wasn't built for life. It was built for death. "Engine room," Jace whispered. "Split off. Plant the disruptors." As Farron and 2 others moved to the lower decks, Jace and Elira pressed toward the bridge. They passed hallways lined with cryopods, each one labeled civilian deterrent systems, people frozen, prisoners turned into weapons. Elira felt sick. "They called us savages," she whispered. "But this is monstrous." Jace didn't answer, because he agreed. They reached the bridge. Carvin stood at the center, draped in his golden robe, surrounded by guards. But this time, Jace didn't sneak. He stepped forward, blaster drawn. Carvin turned, almost amused. "You've come to die?" he said. "No," Jace said. "We've come to end you." Carvin smiled cruelly. "And what makes you think you can stop what we built?" Elira stepped beside Jace. "Because we're not afraid anymore," she said. "And your time is over." Carvin's smile faded. Then, the fight began. Blasters fired, shields shattered. Jace rolled behind a console, firing back with sharp precision. Elira moved with deadly grace, disabling one guard after another. She wasn't just fighting with strength, she was fighting with purpose, with rage, with hope. Carvin activated the override panel, starting the countdown. "If I fall," he roared, "you all burn with me." But before he could finish, a single shot rang out. Not from Jace, not from Elira. From behind Carvin stood Lord Valen, his weapon smoking. "Enough," Valen said. Carvin collapsed. Everyone froze. Valen stepped forward, bleeding from a wound in his side. "Shut it down," he said. Elira ran to the console. Her hands moved fast. Code scrolled. Lights flashed red, then blue. The countdown stopped. The Black Storm went silent. They had won. For now. Outside, across the planet, the message went out. A rebel signal. Clear, strong. We are no longer slaves. We are no longer silent. The sky is ours now. And in the halls of power, the last of the lords began to flee, because they knew the age of fear had ended, and the age of the free had begun. A new name in the stars, HFY Sci-Fi Story. The Black Storm had fallen, but its shadow remained. The people of Valthor Prime watched from every balcony, every ruined window, every alley where slaves once whispered in the dark. They watched the sky, waiting for another weapon, another threat, but none came because the weapon was gone and in its place. A signal, not from the lords, but from her. Elira stood at the center of the Black Storm's command bridge, the lights of 1,000 systems flickering around her. She faced the camera with dirt still on her hands, blood still on her sleeve, and a fire still burning in her chest. "To every world that has known silence," she said, her voice calm and steady. "To every voice that has been caged, every body broken by power, every name erased, we are still here." The signal spread across the stars. "This ship," she continued, "once carried death. Now it carries a new flag. Behind her, The rebel banner hung, made from cloth stitched by prisoners in secret, red and silver with a single star in the center, a symbol of defiance. The noble lords are broken, their chains shattered, and from this day forward, no soul on Valthor Prime will kneel again. Across the planet, people cried. Some dropped tools and raised fists. Some fell to their knees and whispered thanks. And in the far corners of the galaxy, pirate captains, human traders, hidden resistance cells, all watched and believed. 3 days later, the old throne room was silent. Its gold was gone. The lords had fled, their towers stripped, their secrets exposed. The data Jace had pulled from the Black Storm's core contained every contract, every illegal trade, every lie the Empire had helped spread. And when it was broadcast, the Empire was silent. They didn't defend the lords. They just backed away, like cowards who had lost their leash. Elira walked through the ruined hall now, her steps echoing over the marble. Behind her followed dozens of people, former slaves, rebel leaders, even some humans who had chosen the side of freedom over power. She stopped at the central throne, the same one where Lord Carvin once laughed as she was beaten. She reached down and ripped it from the floor. The room cheered, but she didn't smile. Not yet. We don't need thrones, she said. We need each other. And so, the Council of the Free was formed, not to rule, but to rebuild. And at its head stood Elira, not as queen, not as conqueror, but as one of them. Jace stood on the edge of the palace wall that night, staring out at the stars. Ships were landing, peacefully now. Aid ships, volunteers, old rebels returning home. He could leave if he wanted, return to Earth, to a world that had forgotten him long ago. But his feet didn't move. Thinking of running, came a voice behind him. He turned. Elira stood there, arms crossed, eyes brighter than ever. Just thinking, he said, about what happens next. She stepped beside him. You could go, she said. You've done enough. He looked at her. So have you. I'm not leaving, she said. This is my world, and now it's my fight to finish. He smiled. Just a little. Then I guess I'm staying. She looked away, trying not to show the emotion in her eyes. You saved me, Jace, not just from them, but from becoming like them. Angry, bitter, empty. No, he said. You saved yourself. I just gave you a moment to breathe. A long silence. Then, from below, a child's voice called out. It's her. The free one. The girl from the screen. More voices joined. Laughter. Hope. People gathering around. Jace and Elira looked down at the crowd, children pointing, elders waving. And in the center, someone had built a small statue of her. Rough stone. Nothing fancy, but it said everything. Single word carved into the base, Elira. Weeks passed, then months. The council grew stronger. Planets once afraid to speak out began sending messages. Fleets once used for conquest were turned into ships of peace. Schools were built, farms restored. But across it all, one truth remained. Freedom is never given. It is taken, fought for, bled for, and held tightly by those brave enough to never let go. Years later, under the stars of a new alliance, children across many worlds would study the revolution. They would learn the names of leaders, of rebel heroes, of broken systems rebuilt. But one name always stood apart. Elira the Free. And beside her story, always etched into history, was another name. Commander Jace Riker. The human who defied 2 empires. Not for power, not for glory, but for one girl who stood alone in the dark, until he gave her his light.